Good morning, Minister Lo, Minister Fast, Chief Executive, friends, ladies and gentlemen. I know it's been a difficult time to try and get here with pouring rain, and then the transit system has broken down. So thank you so much for making the effort. And first of all, a very warm welcome to Think Asia, Think Hong Kong, the largest promotion ever staged in Canada by the Hong Kong Trade Development Council. I'm delighted to be here in Toronto, a city which I have not visited for over 20 years. And some of you may wonder why we are mounting this large-scale promotion here at this time. And to answer this question, let's take a look at the bigger picture. Putting things in perspective, as you know, the global economic landscape has been changing at a very rapid pace, with the center of gravity shifting to the east, and the bilateral trade pacts are being made. So within Asia, China has emerged as the second largest economy in the world, and even though you may hear that the China economy is slowing down and growing at a more moderate pace, but maybe I can share with you the growth rate of China every 3 years will be creating a UK economy. So China is still holding vast potential to develop and grow. Our regional neighbors in Southeast Asia, or the ASEAN region as it is called, also continue to evolve as an economic powerhouse. Just the 10 ASEAN nations combined make up a market of 620 million consumers. You may also recently heard the name, the New Silk Road, the 21st century maritime Silk Road, or the One Belt, One Road, as it is known inside China. And amongst, this is often mentioned now amongst the political and business circles. Broadly speaking, the One Belt, One Road refers to China's strategic concept and plan in facilitating trade, financial, infrastructural, and cultural development, and interchange across the 65 nations from Asia to Europe. Our chief executive will tell you more about this later. Suffice to say that the One Belt, One Road will cover 4.4 billion people. That's 63% of the world's population. And this offers infinite possibilities for our business, whether you are looking to grow, diversify, to find partners, or make investment abroad. But we understand too that the sheer size of these markets are simply daunting. Where and how do you start? And you will likely face more questions than answers before you can start making the decisions on whether you want to exploit this new horizon. And this is where Hong Kong can help. We at the TDC will be working diligently on how we can assist you in exploring and assessing the opportunities and the feasibilities. The Chinese mainland is committed to a market growth, and no one knows the mainland markets better than we do in Hong Kong. We know the ways of doing business in the mainland, and we have a shared history and a shared culture, and our business partners across the border. All these helps to make business happen. Our strategic position, not only as a gateway to the Chinese mainland, but also as a global trading hub in Asia, also gives us a natural advantage as a springboard for international companies entering our region. Furthermore, our common law legal system, free flow of information, our long tradition of international trade, combined with an understanding of the cultures and the business practices from the East and the West. All these can help you take advantage of opportunities. Our city also has a host of world-class professional services in financial, legal, accounting, logistics, you name it. Basically, every aspect of business service that you may require, we can provide for you. And as you navigate the complex markets of Asia and the Chinese mainland, these professionals not only give you advice and help you network, but also can facilitate in many other aspects like due diligence or deal negotiation. These are but some of Hong Kong's competitive strengths that can help Canadian companies leverage the opportunities from the One Belt, One Road. And speaking of our relationship with Canada, Hong Kong has long enjoyed an active relationship in bilateral trade. Hong Kong's import from Canada amounted to almost 4.6 billion Canadian dollars last year, making us your 6th largest export destination for goods. And Canada's direct investment in our city reached 6.1 billion Canadian dollars. Hong Kong is also home to around 300,000 Canadians, the largest Canadian expat community in Asia, which brings us back to today. Today's Think Asia, Think Hong Kong builds on our strong foundation by bringing Canada and Hong Kong even closer together. With over 100 distinguished leaders from business and government from Hong Kong and the mainland, this event helps you expand your network, unlock business potential, and get up-to-date information to help you make informed decisions. Our speakers will share their views at thematic sessions under 4 key topics, covering, firstly, selling to China and Asia. Secondly, Chinese outbound investment. Thirdly, wealth management and renminbi internationalization. And finally, technology collaboration. I also encourage you to take advantage of the Business Support Zone, where you can receive free practical advice on doing business in Asia, particularly on the Chinese mainland via Hong Kong. Professionals will be on hand to offer their expertise to you. After today, our follow-on missions in Chinese outbound investment, technology, food and wine, and professional services also bring potential business partners out to you for meaningful discussions and exchange. And of course, our Toronto office, headed by Andrew Udry, will continue the momentum by bringing Hong Kong's benefits to other parts of Canada. I would like to thank all our supporting organizations and groups from Hong Kong and Canada for helping to make this event a success. And a special thank you goes to all our speakers for taking time out of their busy schedule to join this promotion and for sharing their expertise. I wish you all a very fruitful and rewarding day. Now, it is my great pleasure to introduce my good friend and Hong Kong's Chief Executive, the Honourable C Y Leung, to share with us some of his insights and vision for Hong Kong. Thank you.
Minister Fass, Ambassador Law, Vincent, ladies and gentlemen, friends of Hong Kong, good morning, and welcome to Think Asia, Think Hong Kong. It's a great pleasure to be here in Canada, in this captivating city of Toronto, a delight to walk the smart streets and cosmopolitan neighborhoods of Toronto. I and my colleagues stepped onto a plane yesterday in Hong Kong, and a few drinks, a movie, a dinner, a breakfast later, we landed in Toronto. It's 14 hours direct flight, in case you haven't tried it. More than Canada's financial and business capital, Toronto is one of the world's fast-rising global cities, and in so many ways. Mercer's 2015 Quality of Living rankings ranked Toronto in the top 15 worldwide. This year's TATHK Global Cities Index and Outlook placed Toronto among the 16 global elite cities. There's another measure I find fascinating, and that's Toronto's status as one of the world's most multicultural cities, a city of 2.8 million and nearly half the population born outside Canada, a city where more than 140 languages and dialects are spoken, a city of brilliant and enviable inclusiveness. And that dazzling diversity, I'm pleased to note, includes about 500,000 Chinese immigrants. The number rises to about 1.2 million across Canada, with about half of them from, yes, Hong Kong. It's certainly not a one-way street. About 300,000 Canadian passport holders live and work in Hong Kong. And the Canadian Chamber of Commerce in Hong Kong is the largest Canadian business organization outside Canada. and among the largest and most active international chambers in Hong Kong and indeed in the entire Asia Pacific. Canada and Hong Kong are, in short, extended family and good business partners. Last year, our bilateral trade reached nearly 5.7 billion Canadian dollars. And through the first quarter of this year, our trade was up nearly 8% year on year. I'm also pleased to note that Canada's investment in Hong Kong is substantial, totaling 5.1 billion Canadian dollars at the end of 2013. I'm here today leading a delegation of more than 100 high-profile business leaders and government officials, including 27 from the mainland of China. We're here because we believe that our strong and long-standing connections in business and in culture offer the promise of a far more rewarding future for our two economies and the companies that drive them. I'm here to invite you to take advantage of Hong Kong's super connector role between mainland China and the world, between the mainland China and Canada. Hong Kong can connect you to the vast markets of the Chinese mainland thanks to our one country, two systems arrangements. From a business standpoint, the combined advantage of one country and two systems is compelling. It gives us and our business partners advantages no other economy in the world can offer. Hong Kong is part of China. When you do business with Hong Kong, you do business with China. But Hong Kong is distinct from other Chinese cities. It is why nearly 7,600 overseas and mainland Chinese companies keep offices in Hong Kong, and that includes some 100 Canadian companies. They do business with Hong Kong, with mainland China, and throughout Asia with confidence, knowing that capital, information, trade, and people flow freely through Hong Kong, knowing that the playing field in Hong Kong is open and even, the people of Hong Kong open-minded. They know that they do not compete with the Hong Kong government, as we do not own businesses, unless, of course, you are in the railway or theme park business, because we do own part of them. They know that our tax system is simple and our tax rate low, our communications and logistics infrastructure world-class. They count on Hong Kong because our legal system is based on common law, our judiciary independent, our intellectual property regime robust. And in case you don't know yet, our salaries tax return is a simple form of 4 pages. Earlier this year, the Washington-based Heritage Foundation ranked Hong Kong first in its Index of Economic Freedom. The 21st year in a row it has done so. And Hong Kong placed second in this year's World Competitiveness Yearbook rankings. The annual International Institute for Management Development report focuses on business and government efficiency, as well as infrastructure and overall economic performance. There are other excellent reasons to turn to Hong Kong when you look to Asia for new market opportunities and investment prospects. Take, for example, our research and development sector is flourishing thanks to our sound legal system and IP strengths, our world-class tertiary institutions and technology infrastructure, and our close technology cooperation with the mainland. We have got the talent too. Professor Charles Kao, past president of the Chinese University of Hong Kong, is a Nobel laureate in physics. Professor Cui Lap Chi, who is here with us today, won the 2014 Henry G. Friesen International Prize in Health Research, an award established by Friends of the Canadian Institutes of Health Research and the Canadian Academy of Health Sciences to recognize international leaders of exceptional achievement in science and health policy. And at the recent International Exhibition of Innovations of Geneva, Hong Kong walked off with 13 gold awards, 5 silvers, and a Grand Prix. The Grand Prix was awarded to a Hong Kong-based biotechnology company, Vitagen, which developed a technology using fish embryos rather than animals to test for toxic substances in a variety of consumer products. Vitagen is one of the many tech startups alongside established companies based in our Hong Kong Science and Technology Parks Corporation, I invite more Canadian IT startups to join us. Asia is waiting. Finance is another area of great promise for our two economies. After all, Toronto is North America's third largest financial services center, behind only New York and Chicago. As for Hong Kong, we are one of the world's leading financial centers. We are both China's international financial center and the world's China financial capital. As the mainland of China continues to reform and open up its financial markets, we serve as the country's launching pad. We have first-hand knowledge and first-mover advantages. We're pleased to share them with Canadian businesses and investors. China's currency, the renminbi, is a prime example of our superconnector role in finance. In 2004, we were given the opportunity to internationalize the renminbi. Today, we are the world's biggest offshore renminbi market. In the first quarter of this year, the daily turnover on Hong Kong's RMB real-time gross settlement system reached 140 billion US dollars. That's up 30% over the same period last year. And Hong Kong banks now handle some 70% of global renminbi payments. As the superconnector between China and the rest of the world, the new chapters go on. Beginning July 1st, the mutual recognition of cross-border funds will allow 100 eligible Hong Kong funds and 850 eligible mainland funds to apply for approval to be sold in each other's markets. The deal follows the launch last November of the Shanghai-Hong Kong Stock Connect, another significant move in the liberalization of the mainland's capital markets. Through Stock Connect, investors in Hong Kong and around the world can invest directly in over 500 Shanghai-listed shares through the Hong Kong Stock Exchange. And mainland investors can trade in some 280 Hong Kong-listed shares via the Shanghai Stock Exchange using onshore renminbi funds. This program is popular. In April, record-breaking trading days were rung up on both northbound and southbound turnovers. The highest combined daily turnover hit 5 billion US dollars, and that's daily turnover. Up next is the Shenzhen Hong Kong Stock Connect. We expect it to open later this year. The Shenzhen boss, by the way, is known for its IT companies and startups. Our superconnector role with the mainland extends well beyond finance. CEPA, our free trade agreement with the mainland, gives Hong Kong companies tariff-free access to the mainland for goods produced in Hong Kong. It also gives our service suppliers preferential access to the mainland. And CEPA is nationality neutral. Canadian companies need only partner with Hong Kong companies to take advantage of its singular benefits. Then there's a new strategy of China's Silk Road Economic Belt and 21st Century Maritime Silk Road initiatives. The Grand Belt Road will need investment on an equally grand scale. In this too, Hong Kong can serve as a super connector. We are, after all, the Asian region's major hub for overseas investors, as well as mainland investors looking to go out to the world. Along with capital, China's Belt Road will create an overwhelming demand for services. Here again, Hong Kong is well positioned to play a central role. From trade and finance to law and accounting, together with infrastructural project management, environmental and risk assessment, and transport and tourism, we have the professional services to pave the Belt Road way throughout the 21st century. I invite Canadian companies and investors to join us. I invite you to think Asia, think Hong Kong. Throughout this unprecedented day of intelligence, insight, and networking, you'll hear a great deal more about how Hong Kong can be your future. For that, my thanks to our organizer, the Trade Development Council of Hong Kong. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief Executive. And I now have the great honor to invite the Honourable Ed Fast, Canada's Minister of International Trade, to address us. Minister Fast.
Well, good morning, everyone. Thank you for attending this conference. It's a pleasure to be here with our friends and partners from Hong Kong. In fact, I'm especially pleased to welcome the Chief Executive to Canada. And I'm also pleased to welcome my counterpart, the Secretary for Commerce and Economic Development, my good friend Gregory So, to Canada again. And Greg and I have done a lot of work together, and you'll hear more about that later in my comments. Also delighted to welcome to Toronto the Chair of the Hong Kong Trade Development Council, Vincent Lo, and its Executive Director, Margaret Fong. Of course, two of my provincial counterparts are also here. I understand that British Columbia's Teresa Watt is here. Where's Teresa? She stepped out, and I don't know if Michael Chan from Ontario is here. In any event, I expect he will be here later. So on behalf of our Prime Minister, Stephen Harper, and the Government of Canada, I thank all of you, 150 delegates or so from Hong Kong and 1,300 plus from Canada, for coming here today for the showcase of our great friendship and for highlighting the many opportunities for new and strengthened partnerships. I also want to extend my appreciation to the organizers and the sponsors for bringing Think Asia, Think Hong Kong to Toronto, and for the opportunity to share a few thoughts with you this morning, this being the largest event of its kind ever to take place on Canadian soil. Now, the size and scope of this event stands as a testament to the strength of our bilateral friendship and the ties that bind us. And nowhere is this more evident than in our people-to-people ties. As has already been mentioned, there are somewhere in the order of 300,000 Canadians living in Hong Kong and making Hong Kong their home. And that number would make it the 16th largest Canadian city on the planet. Of course, we have other things in common. Our respective peoples recognize the values of freedom, democracy, human rights, and as already mentioned by Vincent, the rule of law. And there's also our sometimes shared passion for that great Canadian pastime, the game of ice hockey. And I understand that there is a team called the Hong Kong Typhoons who didn't quite have the season they were hoping for. But then we are in Toronto, where the Leafs have become quite accustomed to perpetual disappointment. So there's always next year. But we also see the depth of our bilateral relationship in the close to what we believe are 200 Canadian companies with offices located in Hong Kong, and the many more that are engaged in partnerships and joint venture arrangements there. The reason we know it's about that number is because they have to file tax returns here in Canada. And we also see it in the $4.6 billion in Canadian merchandise exports to Hong Kong in 2014, of course, making Hong Kong our 6th largest global export market for goods and our 7th largest market for services. Now, it's quite evident that Canada and Hong Kong share a common focus on trade and common approaches to liberalizing trade flows all around the world. Indeed, it is Hong Kong, as has already been suggested, that typically ranks right at the very top on indexes which measure how free and open the world's leading economies are. And by the way, friends, Canada isn't far behind. I think on that Heritage Index, we rank somewhere around 5th or 6th. The reality is our respective economies are based on trade. It is our economic lifeblood, our wealth, our standard of living, and our economic prosperity all rise and fall according to our ability to export, to invest abroad, and to attract investment to our own countries. Now, although Canada has always been a strong trading nation, until a few years ago, we had only signed a handful of free trade agreements. The most notable of those being our free trade agreement with the US and Mexico, which still, by the way, defines our North American production platform. Now, during the intervening years, trade liberalization was placed on the back burner. It was only in 2006, when our government under Prime Minister Stephen Harper was elected, that we embarked upon the largest trade expansion initiative in Canadian history. And more recently, we released what we refer to as the Global Markets Action Plan, or GMAP in short, to help focus our trade expansion efforts in the markets and sectors of greatest interest to Canadian businesses. Now, our goal was to concentrate our resources on markets where Canadian businesses have the best chance for success. And I said at the time when I released GMAP that Canada will play to its strengths, and that these strengths will be developed into comprehensive trade strategies that will keep Canada at the forefront of trade liberalization and ensure a level playing field for Canadian companies. And we've delivered on that plan. As of today, Canada has concluded free trade agreements with 43 different countries, 38 of those within the last 9 years. And this means that Canadian businesses will soon have free trade access to a market representing more than half of the world's entire economy. What's more, we've created new and aggressive trade promotion tools for Canadian companies, especially our SMEs, so they can use those to penetrate new markets and expand their exports. Tools such as Canadian technology accelerators, our Go Global workshops, and the Enterprise Canada Network. We're expanding Canada's world-leading team of trade commissioners. We announced that in the budget about a month ago. And we're providing direct support for SMEs to participate in trade missions and develop export development strategies. And of course, I would be remiss if I didn't mention Export Development Canada, which provides our SMEs with a whole new suite of products to respond to their export financing and insurance needs. Now, the bottom line for us is this: we will do everything within our power to help boost Canadian exports and create new opportunities for our companies around the world. And like everyone here, we understand that some of the most attractive opportunities lie in Asia. How and to what extent we'll be able to turn those opportunities into success will heavily depend on our strong partnership with Hong Kong. Think Asia, think Hong Kong. That is a message we will gladly share with Canada's business community. Our government fully understands the region's economic potential. We understand that Asia's breathtaking rise is transforming and enriching hundreds of millions of lives. And nowhere is this more so than in China itself. Now, as China prepares to become the world's largest economy, Canada can and will be an important partner. After years of strong growth, China is now Canada's second largest single-nation trading partner, behind only the United States, with two-way merchandise trade reaching $78 billion last year. And we've achieved other milestones with China, most notably preferred destination status for Chinese tourists coming to Canada, the establishment of Toronto and Canada, more broadly speaking, as a renminbi trading hub, the first, by the way, in North America, and an agreement to offer 10-year multiple entry visas for Canadians traveling to China. For that, we're deeply grateful. I thank the Ambassador, Ambassador Luo, who's also present here, for facilitating much of that work. Foreign direct investment between Canada and China also plays an important role in Canada's prosperity. I fully expect that the Investment Protection Treaty between Canada and China that came into force recently will measurably increase bilateral investment flows between our two countries. That investment treaty will ensure that Canadian companies doing business in China are treated fairly and benefit from a more predictable and transparent business environment. And I'm also pleased to report today that Canada and Hong Kong have just concluded negotiations on our own investment protection treaty, a treaty that Secretary So and I were able to complete in a timely manner. In fact, Greg had suggested that we call it the So Fast Treaty. Friends, our government is committed to building on this progress. And not surprisingly, both China and Hong Kong have been designated priority markets under our GMAP. There are great opportunities for your businesses in China and Hong Kong, and our 16 trade offices in both places and well over 100 trade commissioners stand ready to partner with you. But our government is also focused on helping small and medium-sized businesses break into other markets in Asia, where Hong Kong can again play a significant role as a gateway and as a facilitator of trade. For example, our free trade agreement with South Korea came into force this past year. And last month, we announced the launch of exploratory discussions towards a free trade agreement with the Philippines. Canada is also eager to conclude negotiations on the Trans-Pacific Partnership, which will improve our access into the Southeast Asian economies of Malaysia, Vietnam, Brunei, and Singapore. And again, Hong Kong will likely act as our key gateway into those economies. We're working very hard to strengthen our ties with the Association of Southeast Asian Nations. In fact, I believe I'm the first Canadian trade minister ever to have visited each of the 10 countries of ASEAN. In all these cases and many more, Hong Kong can provide a secure, stable, and prosperous economic gateway for scores of Canadian businesses, many of you represented here. So let me just briefly acknowledge Hong Kong's significant advantages as a partner for Canadian companies, especially for our SMEs. And some of these advantages have already been highlighted by the Chief Executive. Let me begin with Hong Kong being a highly educated, English-speaking, and internationally skilled hub which facilitates huge flows of goods, services, and investments. Hong Kong is strategically located within only 5 hours of over half of the world's population. It is Asia's leading aviation and shipping hub, with the second largest stock market on the continent. Through sound economic policies, Hong Kong has attained some of the highest rankings in the world in terms of economic freedom, competitiveness, and ease of doing business. Foreign companies doing business in Hong Kong face no foreign ownership limitations. They enjoy a simple, predictable, and as mentioned, low tax regime, and the free movement of capital, talent, and goods. Hong Kong consistently ranks as the world's third most important financial center, behind only London and New York. And today, Hong Kong is critically important as a platform for Canadian businesses to access huge market opportunities throughout Asia. So with the support of Canada's Trade Commissioner Service, Canadian companies are already very active and becoming more so by the day. For example, the Ontario's Teachers' Pension Fund, National Bank of Canada, Hootsuite, and Loblaws are among the Canadian firms that have opened offices in Hong Kong just this past year. Bombardier, IBI Group, Thales Canada, and Delcan are already major players in Hong Kong's transportation infrastructure. Companies like Aldo, Fruits and Passion, Canada Goose, Arc'teryx, and Roots are great examples of Canadian brands that are becoming established throughout Asia, in many cases with the assistance of Hong Kong partners. And Canadian companies are also finding excellent success in Hong Kong's architectural and design market. There is no shortage of Canadian success stories in this region of the world. Many in this room have their own stories to tell, while some are writing their story as we speak. Our government understands the importance of the Asia-Pacific region for Canadian businesses. We understand the importance of further solidifying our very strong relationships with Hong Kong. And that's why I'm so delighted today to be signing an arrangement of mutual cooperation with the Hong Kong Trade Development Council. This document will promote increased commercial cooperation activities between Canada and Hong Kong. And more specifically, it will help Canadian companies, especially our SMEs, use Hong Kong's strategic regional position as a commercial, as a financial, as a logistical, business services, and trade show hub. It will help make business connections and increase sales to Hong Kong, mainland China, and other Asian markets. So again, to my Canadian friends, think Asia, but think Hong Kong. But Hong Kong companies also have a long history of business success in Canada, particularly in sectors such as transportation, infrastructure, real estate, agri-food, energy, life sciences, and of course, financial services. Many are taking advantage of Canada's favorable investment climate, as recognized by Forbes magazine last year when it named Canada the #1 place in the world to do business. So we're obviously in competition with Hong Kong. Our economic strength is underpinned by the world's safest and most stable banking sector, and that's been reaffirmed 7 times, 7 years in a row, by the World Economic Forum. We offer low cost, low tax environment with an overall tax rate on new business investment which is substantially lower than all other G7 countries. And when it comes to international education, which by the way is a subject very close to my own heart, there's a reason why Hong Kong should choose Canada. The OECD recently named Canada as the most educated country in the world. Canadian universities have well-established partnerships in Hong Kong and a reputation for delivering world-class educational programs. The Richard Ivey School of Business at Western University became the first North American business school to establish an Asian campus. And that was back in 1998. And the universities of British Columbia, Toronto, Waterloo, Royal Roads, and McGill all have offices right in Hong Kong. In fact, I was told earlier today that we have over 170,000 alumni of Canadian universities in Hong Kong. That is quite an educational partnership that all of us can be very proud of. Our government is committed to utilizing those strong ties to continue building a partnership that will lead to new opportunities and even stronger economies in Hong Kong and Canada. Now, to all my friends here today, if it sounds like I'm giving you a sales pitch, you're absolutely right. An important part of my job is to be Canada's salesman, to promote Canada's rock-solid economic fundamentals and world-leading investment and education advantages, and to highlight some of our most trusted partnerships around the world, including that with Hong Kong. If you have not yet considered Canadian companies as investment partners, I encourage you to do so. Together with our Consul General, Ian Burchett, the entire Canadian Consulate General team, and of course our highly engaged Canadian community in Hong Kong, we are working together to build strong alliances and forge those new partnerships to the benefit of both of our peoples. So the bottom line is this. The Canada-Hong Kong partnership is clearly a two-way street, benefiting businesses and our citizens on both sides of the Pacific. Indeed, and I will boldly say this publicly, it is among the most fruitful economic relationships Canada has in the world. Now, Shakespeare once said, "There is a tide in the affairs of men, which taken at its flood leads on to fortune, prosperity. On such a full sea are we now afloat, and we must take the current when it serves or lose our ventures." Friends, on such a tide is the Canada-Hong Kong partnership now afloat. Your presence here today is evidence of that. So might I suggest that we now take that current and that flood that Shakespeare referred to and translate it into unprecedented prosperity for the people we all serve. I serve Canadians. Chief Executive Leung served the people of Hong Kong and the people of China. Ambassador Lo does the same thing. Our Consul General served the people of Canada. Those of you here are business people. You serve your employees, you serve your customers, and you serve your citizens, more broadly speaking. So I again, to our Canadian friends, say this. Think Asia, think Hong Kong. And to our good friends from Hong Kong, I say this. When you think of North America, think Canada. I thank you for your kind attention.